Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Northeast Scene podcast. This is Keith.
And Tommy.
How's everybody doing? Today we have a very, very, very special guest, Mr. Josh Brigham from Hopesfall.
Ew, here we go.
Do I clap for myself?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
please,
yeah.
please.
All right, yeah. Yeah, me.
How you, Josh, thanks so much for coming on. You know, you were on our most wanted guest list, and I got to tell you, I didn't think it would happen by episode 7, but here we are.
Yeah.
Well, dude, happy to be here. Yeah, seriously.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Josh, how are you coping in the age of Corona? What does your day-to-day look like?
My day-to-day has not changed at all.
Really?
So I work for a brewery, and I'm a sales rep. And so our business supplies the grocery stores and the convenience stores and all the retail places where you can purchase alcohol, but we're part of the supply chain. Mm-hmm. So I am essential, and I'll never think of myself as anything else.
Wow. So yeah.
So no, but like my day-to-day did change. I would normally call on like bars and restaurants and the hotels and the stadiums, like right in the center of Charlotte.
Yeah.
And like I went from like 300 accounts to like about 10 in one day when they closed all of the bars and restaurants and stuff. And so like our boss like just redrew the whole, like we just pivoted immediately to focus on retail. Because we knew that that's the only game in town. And so we've been like full court press on convenience stores, Whole Foods, Harris Teeter is a big chain down here, Food Lion's a chain down here. Who else? Target, Walmart, like all, places like that where normally I'm like going to bars and restaurants and hotels and stuff. So it's been kind of an interesting shift. Objectively, like taking, like, put the situation aside, I've kind of enjoyed getting to do a different thing with the business.
Right.
But now I'm working more, but honestly, I'm grateful that I am busy and that I have something to do.
Same here. Things at work have been busier than ever, and I'm really happy about that. They just laid somebody off. So I'm hoping there's not going to be more, but I still have a job and I have enough things to keep me busy. So
Keith, I'm always curious. What do you do for a living?
I work as a project manager for an outsourcing firm.
Okay.
Yeah. So we sell like outsourced services or technology solutions to whoever wants to buy them.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's an outsourced service?
Like, you know how they have like security guards they hire to work outside a warehouse?
Yeah.
Imagine that, but for like office jobs.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, like we don't want our people to worry about making copies and doing reception and doing hospitality. So we hire you to hire the people to do that and train them and staff them and all that stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
But listen, my job is very boring, so we got to talk. We got to talk to Josh while we have him here.
No. Tommy, what's your job? Tommy, what do you do?
I teach middle school mathematics in Trenton, New Jersey.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
no, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've been a middle school math teacher now I've been a middle school teacher for the last 8 years. And I moved over to math. I really, really like the school I work for. It's a charter school. And it's really like the way it's run is super awesome. And it's very, very, I went to Catholic school from first grade all the way through high school.
Same.
I'm sorry. I went from first grade all the way through. I went to a Catholic college.
Oh, right.
So for me, it really reminds me of my education growing up, which was very, very strict, and a lot of like things that we knew used to work a long time ago. And now we're like, you know what? This is actually tried and true. We've used this over and over again. They've tried all these. Education is one of these things where fads come up really big. And people go, yeah, no, let's try this. And then they're gung-ho behind it for 2 to 3 years. And then they like look at the data and go, well, it's not working exactly how we wanted it, or it's not perfect. And then they go on and latch on to whatever the new fad is. We're kind of like, nope, the way we used to learn is pretty awesome. So we're just going to keep doing that. And it's really about hard work and perseverance. So I just liked the place I was staying at. And one of the teachers I worked with was like, hey, we lost a math teacher today. Like, they actually are leaving, and we think you might be a good fit for that position. And I was like, yeah, but I don't have any math credits in college. Like,
Oh, shit.
so I don't know what to do. Like, I couldn't teach math. Like, I can't legally be a, you have to take a state certification test and everything.
No. Well, hold on. Let me stop you right there. It was like, now, like, you're like, okay, I can't teach math, but like, could you do math
Oh yeah, for sure.
beyond like, a calculator?
Yeah, no, I was always pretty good with math. I think I made it to calculus in high school, so I was pretty decent with it. And I just never thought of it as like that moment when you're looking at your life and you go, oh shit, I never thought this is what this was going to turn out to be. I never thought I would be a 37-year-old guy standing in front of 11-year-olds teaching how to divide fractions. Like,
is it not like rewarding though at a certain
it's
point?
amazing.
Like getting people to understand a concept or see something different. Like,
100%.
I got to imagine that, like, yeah, like when you get somebody over the hump to something that was like intimidating, and then they're like, okay, and like they've mastered that skill or are on the path, that feels really good.
Oh, that's a lot of teachers call that the aha moment, like when the kids go, "Oh, I got it!" Like that's there's definitely like an adrenaline behind that, because you see kids like struggle with something, and you're like, "All right, we'll try this," and then that doesn't work. You're like, "All right, we'll try this," and then that doesn't work, and then you're like, "Well, wait, what if you thought about it like this and then tried to solve it?" And then the kids get it, and you're like, "Okay, like you at least have a bag of kind of a bag of tricks that you can go into when kids are struggling."
You have cues.
Yeah.
You're like,
you have cues that like you get better at using them in the right places, and
exactly.
And like it's like there's a skill to the presentation, and like there's an art to it.
That's one thing that I try to get.
That.
I try to get people to kind of understand, like when they come into. So my school is really, really, really selective about who they hire. So when people come in for like interviews, they're pretty daunting. It's essentially we have them show up in the morning. We have them prepare a lesson based on a standard we gave them and say like, hey, this is what you're going to be teaching today. We throw them in a classroom with no other teachers there to correct behaviors or anything. We toss them in, in front of 30 kids.
Are you filming?
Well,
is there a mirror?
Yeah,
like one of those two-sided mirrors, and they know that like the lawyers are on the other side.
No, so what they do is they have those little mini camcorders, like the little I forget what they're called. I can't
body cams, like an officer.
But like that style camera, it's really small, it's non-invasive, and the microphone,
the closed circuit cam.
It's like that, but it's not in every classroom. So the person will basically do the interview and they drop them off, and then our style of teaching is very not what everybody else learns. So our big thing around hiring is we want people that are coachable. Like, we need to teach you the way that we do stuff. So basically what we have people do is in the morning they teach a lesson, and then we watch it together and say, hey, this is what we want to see you do next time, because that's going to be the difference of someone that's successful in a classroom and someone that's not, because we know what works in a classroom and what makes people or makes kids understand lessons better or process the information better. So like, we want to be able to say like, hey, you went and sat down and looked at what we did, but what we want you to fix is X, Y, and Z. Can you go in and fix it? So in the afternoon, they have time to adjust, and then they go in and teach the same lesson, this time with the idea that we're going to film it again, and we want to see you do those 3 things we talked about.
Interesting. I was listening to a podcast lately. I listen to Jocko sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You guys know that guy?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's super intense, but he's like talking about like officer training school and like the way they get you to do something or be something is they like there's a psychology to every little thing that they make you do, and it's like it's to kind of be able to bring out certain aspects of the personality and like take command of situations. So like I'm wondering, are the 3 things that you guys do is it one of those things where they like it's like we need to see you lead people in a different direction? And
no, mostly it'll be like I mean, it's almost literally like physical things. So it'll be things like, okay, once you pose the main question for the day and you teach your little part, when you're walking around, what we want you to do is either on a piece of paper or in your head, you should be tallying how many kids are getting it correct and how many kids are getting it incorrect. So that you know when you go back up there, should you be reteaching this? And if you are reteaching it, how should you be reteaching it? You should be looking for, okay, I have 30 kids in a classroom and 20 of them are making the exact same mistake. So you need to teach to that mistake. What's the mistake they're making? Oh, when they divide fractions, they're not, using the reciprocal on the second fraction. Okay, so I want to show you 2 examples on the board, and we literally model it for them. Like, this is what you should be doing in a classroom when you see a mistake, and then have them go back with a different class and teach the exact, like, that's the thing is the lesson doesn't change. Nothing changes about anything that we do. Like,
it's just, can they implement that plan
precisely
effectively?
That's it. And like, that's one of those things, like you're talking about, like with people,
that's like coaching. That's coaching.
So that's the thing is, like, when you were talking about with like people like Jocko, it's like that mindset of like being a Navy SEAL and all those things. Like, I'm not saying like what my job is like being a Navy SEAL, but it's all about, there's a mindset you have to have, because essentially when you walk into a classroom, kids need to respect you, but they also need to know that you're someone there that's there to help you. Like that, they can't be afraid of you. Like my boss calls it warm strict. Like, you need to be strict with the kids, but you need to be approachable. But the thing is like with, when you get into those like hard and fast mentalities of like, hey, we have to have you perform like this, a lot of it's really scary, because essentially what you're telling, and like, we have a lot of teachers come in to try, teaching, and it's like they're 23, 24, 25 years, they had just recently graduated from college. This might be their first or their second job. And it's really daunting to walk into a place where it's like, my wife is a regular school teacher in a public school. She gets observed once a year. At minimum, I have at least 2 observations per week. And those are like 20 to 25 minutes where my supervisor...
Well, now, is that someone's observing you to make sure you're like doing it right?
100%,
what is that?
100%. That's literally... They walk in, they grab my lesson plans off the wall. They look to make sure that what I'm teaching lines up with what I said I was going to be teaching a week and a half ago when I submitted them. And then it really comes down to, is he executing in the way that he said he was? And if he's not, what is he doing to adjust in the moment to make sure the kids are getting it? Because it is really like, I always like teaching to think about it as like, in the beginning, 0 out of 30 of them get this. My job is to get them to anywhere between 80 and 90%.
Hey, Tommy.
Yeah.
Did you ever finish watching The Wire?
No.
Dude,
I know that was the most shameful.
I haven't watched it either. I haven't watched it either, and I've heard it's amazing.
I know
it's my favorite show ever. Tommy, watch season 4. That's you, dude.
Oh, really,
Mr. Presbo? That's you.
So I thought it was funny. Was Keith? I have your HBO Go password. So like every time I
you have no excuse.
Every time I open my daughters are like, so Josh, I have twin 6-year-olds, and
oh no, I didn't know that.
I have twin 6-year-old girls, and then we have a new baby that's 6 months old. So my life,
you got your hands full.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, it's really funny. I was doing some like
Keith, give him a fucking break. He hasn't seen the show yet, and he's got shit going on.
But
I mean, 3 kids. That's only like 23 hours out of the day. That other hour, you could and you could catch up on The Wire, dude.
You listen to Jocko too, clearly.
Well, this is what I always think of as like I see whenever I see that HBO logo, immediately I have that guilt pang of like, The
Wire.
I told Keith I was going to watch that, but I did watch True Detective all the way through. I watched all of the first season, and I was like, this is amazing, this is phenomenal. I loved it. I loved it from beginning to end. That was such a great show. Yeah. But I don't know, man. Like there's sometimes where like I think the thing is season 1 was really good for me, and then season 2 got into the whole thing with like the docs and like that.
Dude, I told you not. I told you not to watch season 2. You jumped right to 3.
I know. Well, I made the mistake of doing that, and so now it's just me sitting.
You lost the momentum. Oh, you lost the momentum, dude.
It's the worst part, dude. Is like, but my wife and I never watch anything together. So like, when we find something that we can bond over, because she watches garbage. Like she watches God damn it, what's the show? Like, stuff that's been on the air for a long time, but it's like it's kind of like
network stuff.
Yeah, like Grey's Anatomy. She watches.
Yeah.
She watches Chicago PD. What's the other? She watches some of the the really like crazy like trashy shit like 90 Day Fiance, like that kind of.
Yeah.
Like I can't watch that with her, but like we watched that Tiger King thing together.
Yeah.
Oh man, everybody watched that.
Yeah,
that was great.
That was good.
That
I
was
lost interest
wild.
the last couple seasons or episodes, but it was good overall.
I'm gonna say. So I was gonna say I'm gonna say some unpopular shit. I was not hooked. Like people were like, "Oh my god, this is the craziest thing ever." You know who, Keith? You'll love this. You know who told me to go watch it first? So just imagine the person, Rich Arnold. So Rich Arnold told me to, dude, you gotta do, like freaking out, like on the first, dude, you gotta go watch this. Like, so I was like, all right, I was so hyped on it, and I started watching it, and I was like, oh, okay, it's a great story, but like, the 2 minutes of Rich like blathering on about it was like, oh my god, I can't wait to watch it. He was like, dude, just put it to this way, like this lady gets her arm ripped off in the first episode, and immediately he's like, let's put it this thing. That's the least fucking interesting thing that happens. He's like, But Kelly and I watched it together, and I was like, okay, I can see why it's like this. But did you ever see that one, the Weird and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia? I think it's what.
Yes, it was like a Jackass program.
Exactly. So it's those.
Yes. There's there's a lot of similarities there. There's meth is really what's tying the two families of show together.
Methamphetamine seems to be a common denominator with all of this.
Meth creates a certain type of crazy. These people have fucking lost it.
And
it's you don't eat and you're up for days, and
it's the thing
is it's not as shocking because you're like, they're meth heads, anything can happen.
Yeah, and it makes their behavior wildly entertaining. Like for whatever whatever detractors it has, it makes it really fun to watch these people behave because, like you said, Josh, it's unpredictable. You literally have no idea what's coming next. And the thing is I know. The confidence of some of these people, like when they're doing things, I'm like, who the fuck does this? Like, I always thought of, there was an old comedian. I remember he was telling a story about how, like, when he used to do, it was either meth or coke, but he would get all speeded out. And he's like, dude, the confidence I had when I was doing those drugs was like unbelievable. Like I would see be on the highway and he's like, let's just say, for example, like a plane landed next to me. I would be like, oh, okay. I'd get out and be like, oh, your plane's having trouble. Let's take it up, pop open the hood. Let's take a look real fast. Like he's like, immediately, you have no idea how to do this, but you're so full board. Like, let's just jump in. Let's see what happens. Because I guess, it completely ruins your inhibitions. So you're just like, fucking, let's just go.
If you were a psychologist and like, I was like down and out, and I was in the chair, and you were like, "This is the kind of confidence I can give you right now." I would fucking smoke meth
immediately.
I do it.
It's an immediate decision.
God damn, that sounds great, dude.
You wouldn't care.
I would feel like that.
You wouldn't care. You'd be like, "Turn on the juice, man. I'm ready."
Like, yeah, let's go sell some fucking beer. Yeah, I gotta try that. No,
so,
I'm kidding. I wouldn't.
Folks, Josh will be trying meth. We will report back on the results. We should do the next. Let's do another episode right after this, but let's all smoke meth.
There was
and then we'll do the episode.
This is such a complete aside, but do you remember that comedian from the 80s and his name was Amazing Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay. So they did.
I think a little bit.
He was like half comedian, half magician. Like, so he would do
yes. So he looked like a pirate?
Yes. Dude, he used to wear tons of bandanas. Yes. So there's a documentary on Hulu called, I think it's called The Search for Amazing Jonathan or something like that. But that's literally one of the things that he comes in, like that comes very loud and clear in like the first 30 minutes of this is that he just like goes, oh yeah, by the way, he doesn't call it meth. He says speed all the time. But he goes like, yeah, by the way, I'm addicted to speed, and just pulls out a pipe and starts smoking in the bedroom. So the director of this thing finds out that not only is there an Amazing Jonathan documentary that he's filming, there are 2 other documentary film teams that Jonathan has now hired that are supposed to be fucking filming him too. And
that's amazing.
He gets to the point where he's like, hey, Amazing Jonathan goes, I want you to smoke meth on camera, like to the director. And the director's like, Why? And he's like, I will make this just your documentary. I will just focus on you 100%. We will get this thing done, but you have to smoke meth with me right now. And the documentary guy just like, all right, hold on a second. Like literally gets on the phone with lawyers and he starts talking to people. He's like, all right, they basically said like, don't ever do it. Like they'll do it, but like don't do it on camera. Like in my head, I'm going like, did you really need to call an attorney to fucking find that out? Like, did you really?
No. Like he was willing. That's what that shows. It's like I want that guy on my team.
That's true.
He's like, dude, I'm gonna get this shit done. All right, hold on. Let's make an adult decision. Let me call a lawyer. Hey, but he was ready to go. He's like, I'm gonna fucking do it. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
all right.
Anything,
I like that guy.
Anything for the film. But
yeah, so I want that guy on my team.
Shit.
So Josh,
yeah,
tell us about your intro to hardcore and some of the initial bands that made an early impression on you.
Snapcase, Strong Arm, Zayo.
Yes.
I was a Tooth and Nail kid, so like Living Sacrifice.
Yeah.
And
Embodiment.
Focal Point, Embodiment, Overcome.
What was like the first show you remember going to?
I'm sad that I don't know the answer to that. I have like vivid memories of seeing Weezer on the Pinkerton tour.
Oh shit.
Oh.
With Nada Surf.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if that was my first. I don't know.
Do you know like an early hardcore show you went to where you were like, wow, this shit's crazy. I have to be into this? Because I remember one of the first shows I went to.
I think honestly, I got into the music before I saw a show.
Okay.
Like I knew I was into it.
Now that's interesting because my friends, like Mike Shaw from This Day Forward, I would hear the bands in his car and I'd be like, oh, this is a little too much screaming. But then I went to a show and almost died, and I was like, holy shit, I'm hooked. This is it. So you took the reverse route. You got into the music.
Yeah, like I got into the music. Yeah, like I got into the guitar.
Nice.
That's what got me in, because it was like I grew up listening to like my favorite bands were like the Pumpkins, Hum,
Yes.
the Pixies,
Nice.
Yes.
Dinosaur Jr., Rage Against the Machine, Helmet, and then it's like it just kind of stopped being good, in my opinion, there in that like mid 90s type of thing. And like I knew a lot of people who were into punk and this and that, and but I just got straight into hardcore because the guitars were more technical. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like I was huge into metal. Like I didn't grow up on Pantera and I didn't grow up on Metallica, but like I knew a lot of people that did, like mine was much more of coming at it from a grunge, the Pumpkins and Hum, I was coming from that place, but then I heard the guitars and I was like, this is fucking cool. I don't understand these vocals, but like, I'm feeling this.
Yeah, I never really got into metal like Metallica, Pantera, Slayer. Like I didn't really take that route. I was into grunge. I dabbled in new metal, and then I got right into hardcore. So that was kind of my trajectory.
I think it was new metal that I like when it hit new metal in whenever it did. When like Limp Bizkit really started blowing up.
Right.
I turned off MTV. I was just like, this isn't it.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't what I'm looking for. Something's changed. Like, what do we got to get? Like, where's the, like, there must be something else.
Were you in any other bands before Hopesfall, or was that like, it?
I was in one band. Like, I mean, we were like 16 maybe. And one of the guys that was in the very first iteration of Hopesfall, his name was Chris Kincaid, and he had a band called One Amazing Kid. And like me and Ryan both played with him, and Adam Morgan eventually started playing with him. And Adam and Ryan are two of the other members that started Hopesfall with Chris initially. And like we'd all kind of played together, and then Hopesfall. But Hopesfall, I mean, was really honestly the only serious band I was ever in.
So you're a freshman in college,
and
you can hear. I went back and listened to that first record, and so that's one question I wanted to ask you, is it because I'm a Hum devotee myself, and it sounds like you are too, and you can hear that early influence on the first record in tracks like Lament and From Your Hands. You have your typical late 90s sounding screamy hardcore,
Yeah.
and then there'll be like tracks that just do the whole ethereal hum thing. And so was that your influence there?
That was everybody that like I was playing with all rode that same wave from
Nice.
like grunge into like tooth and nail bands into hardcore.
Okay.
Like all of us were riding the same wave. There was a lot of crank. Remember, not crank. You know, it was crank mail order catalog. But like alongside, so I should have qualified this statement. Alongside of that hardcore influence, we were also getting hit up with like Cursive and Promise Ring and
Yes.
you know, like all that like early emo simultaneously. Like I bypassed punk. I went around punk and went hardcore and emo.
Same.
That early emo type of thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then I started getting into like pop punk and stuff after that.
Right.
But like,
Yeah, I did that too. And I see like the bands you post on like Instagram stories. I think we have very similar tastes because every time you post something, I'm like, I like that. I like that. I like that. Like, it's like everything. So
we're probably around the same way. Did you like Strong Arm?
Yes. Yes.
Shai
Three
Hulud.
of the first bands I got into were Shai Hulud, Strong Arm, and like I think Inside Out. And you know, Shai Hulud and Strong Arm were like two bands I was just really, really into.
Shai Hulud and Strong Arm were like stuff we were just like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
who makes music like this? I don't understand it.
When you
know?
yeah, when I checked out that Shai Hulud LP recently, the one on Revelation, Hearts Once Nourished, and I listen to it now even, and I'm like, what is this? Like,
It's great.
There's nothing else like this. It's just
you know what I kind of feel. Well, maybe this isn't. No, but I feel like Counterparts is maybe like the closest thing to a Shai Hulud Strong Arm, in my opinion, because it's like super tech and it's super punk too. But it's just fucking mean, you know, like it's just tough.
So tell us about how the band initially came together and just like leading up to that first record, The Frailty of Words.
We were, Ryan and I, so we were the two guitar players and Chris was on bass. Doug was the singer. Adam was a drummer. Ryan and I were in college. Adam was in high school. Chris lived in Charlotte. Doug lived in Charlotte. But me and Ryan lived at universities like 2 hours away. So we would drive home on the weekends to practice. And then Ryan and I both transferred to UNCC. And then we were like after that summer, and that was like the summer of 1998. And then we just started writing a record right then. But we didn't know we were writing a record. We were just like, okay, here we go. Let's start making songs. Like,
right.
Go.
And then when you
like,
have
this is
enough
what
of
you
them,
do, right?
You have a record.
We didn't know, you know, like, so like we would get together on like weekends and jam and just write. And that was it. Like, we didn't know. I really don't think we had an agenda. We knew we were going to try to be in like in the hardcore scene,
right?
Because it was like, we wanted to be in a band,
right?
But like, we were like, okay, well, these guys can play, like these people get shows. So like, let's be in like that kind of band.
I got you.
You know?
So was that the first record you ever had out? That first Hopesfall record? How did that feel? Because I remember when I was younger, you know, everyone I knew was in bands, and I thought being in a band would be the solution to like all my problems, and just, you know, that would be the answer to my happiness. So when I was finally in a band and we finally had an EP out that like I could show people, that was like everything to me. So like, how did it feel for you to have a record and be like, hey, here's my record?
It felt great, but at the same time, I don't know, like I grew up like working from like the age of like 14, like, and so it was just like, it was like one more thing that had to fit into it. It was extremely satisfying, but it's like, I think,
so was it not like
I was in college, I had like a pizza delivery job where I was like working 35 hours a week. And it was just like, this is what I can fit into my life. And just like, it was really great and really fun, but it was also like, okay, I gotta get back to work. So it's like,
so it wasn't the end all.
No,
it wasn't the end all be all. It was like, this is just one other thing I'm doing.
Because it was like, I've got like, yeah, like I'm in college. I could pay for this.
Right.
So,
Right. So the next EP, No Wings to Speak of, that was that now I still listen to that regularly. That was a big leap forward. Did you record that and like send it around to labels, or was that
no.
out, how tell us about how that came together?
So like the timing of this is foggy because like 1998 to 2001 was a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
Somehow we ended up playing Take Hold Fest in Birmingham, Alabama, and I think it was like us and us and Under Oath and Between the Buried and Me, and like we met Chad from Take Hold, and like
Mhm.
he knew us. He was just like, yeah, like let's do it, because we'd done that one on this other small label, but like that guy was just like it was a one and done type of thing,
Right.
and so Take Hold was like, it seemed like a good home for us, and they had bands that we liked. Yeah, and then like we wrote those 4 songs. I think it was maybe the summer of 2000, or like the fall semester and then spring semester of like end of 2000, beginning of 2001.
Mhm.
And then we recorded it, I believe, in like May or June of 2001. And then it came out that August, and that was Furnace Fest. I remember, delivering a lot of pizza, and we were playing the songs, and like we were at that point where, like we were trading shows with other bands in other places. Like, so on like spring break and Christmas break and summer break, we would do a week of. We did like a 10-day tour with like not Misery Signals, Seven Angels, Seven Plagues
Mhm.
one time, and then Sky Came Falling. We met Saved by Grace back then. Under Oath, like Ludacris, that then became Norma Jean. Like it was.
Did you
Yeah,
do a lot of touring with that initial lineup?
we did, but in that format, never like full US. It was like, okay, we got 10 days.
Gotcha.
How many shows can we
Gotcha.
get together?
Right.
We did that a bunch of times.
How did you catch the attention of Trustkill? I know they reissued that EP, right?
It was that EP.
Yeah.
That was the EP. It got their attention because we had like, I think we had like Chad was just like, yeah, let's just put out an EP. I don't know if there was. I can't even remember. Did we have a deal? I don't know. Or
Yeah.
if he was just like, yeah, I want this on my label, and we were like, well, we want to put something out. And he was like, all right, let's make it happen. But then, yeah, so that EP got us on Trustkill's radar.
So how did that feel? Because at the time, like Trustkill
Had Poison the Well.
Yeah, they were it. Like, if it was me, I'd be like, yeah, we're on Trustkill. Like, shit's gonna happen. How did you feel moving into that whole thing?
I think that we were stoked because it was only a 3-record deal, and like Solid State wanted to do like a 5-record deal. And we were like, and Solid State's got like kind of a Christian background, and so do we, but we're trying to get away from that. So I think, like all those two things together was a shorter deal, and it was like, it's definitely not a Christian label. Like we're moving out of that background.
Right.
I think that was also weighing heavily on us.
Right.
Like we want to be away from that.
About that, what was it like? I mean, were certain members practicing the faith when you were younger, and as you got older, you just kind of moved away from it? Or
I think, yeah, we all met at a youth group. Like we all went to church together.
Okay.
And we were all the kids like passing around the alternative music. It was like, I can remember going to like church camp when I was like in the 5th and 6th grade, and like me and Ryan, the other guitar player, we'd always sit next to each other on these buses, and we'd go to like Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or Panama City, Florida, or something. And we would just sit there for like the 10-hour bus trip, and he would bring his book of CDs, and we'd just listen to like Siamese Dream, and then like Rubberneck by the Toadies, and then like Filters record, then Helmets record, and then like and like we'd just listen to music for 10 straight hours. And then we get there, and we were like, that was awesome. I can't wait to do it on the way back too. And we just listen to the records,
I myself have 12 years of Catholic school in me, and Tommy even more. So I remember like being on field trips and and
Yeah,
you know,
and that
passing
was it.
CDs back and forth. I
Oh,
remember like
yeah.
getting my hands on Evil Empire and just being like, "This is the
Oh,
best."
yeah,
Like,
dude, that
yeah,
record.
I
So, but yeah, and I think that it just like everybody, like, that was where we met. But I think as everybody got older and like went to college and started working, it was like, oh, the world's just doesn't add up. It's not exactly like what I thought that it was going to be like. And then, then you start to travel and you just start to see a world, and it was like, hey, this isn't really representative of me anymore.
right.
But then
let's get away from that.
But the whole so then that move to Trustkill was like a definitive statement, like, oh, we're not a Christian band anymore. Like that's
we've moved on from that.
That's all right, cool. Because that's like one of those things where like you don't often get people like, I mean, there's always that idea of like there's a band. And then it's like, okay, well, then there's the perception of the band. Like, this is a makeup of 5 people, but like we have an image, we have, all these things that go along with it. And there seems to be people that are like really good at that and can like see what that looks like and how to alter it and do well with it. And then there's other people that are just like, I don't fucking care. Like, let's just make music.
Yeah.
And I remember when you're younger, some of that stuff used to be a big deal. I don't know. It's like, but for me, not so much. Like Zayo was a Christian band, and I just never really cared. They just put out fucking awesome.
Yeah, no,
art.
it didn't mean that like Christian band, like Zayo was freaking great, and like, I mean, there was so much good, like, I mean, Strong Arm, geez.
Yeah,
like,
Overcome.
Dude,
like, there's like
they were awesome. That was never the issue. It was just like, hey, it's like this like ethos and this belief, like this isn't what I'm about anymore. Like, and
plus
it's fine
I feel
if you are, but like I'm not, and like I need to get away from that because that's how I came up, and the world is just different.
Yeah,
like I need to move on from that.
I think Hopesfall made that switch early enough that like it didn't really become a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I heard about you guys, I kind of heard, oh, they used to be a Christian band. Not that I cared, but it was like, I don't know. It wasn't like tied into your legacy in my mind when I discovered you.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those things that like it felt important to get away from back in the day.
Right.
So we just didn't want to, we just didn't want to be that. We didn't want to be judged. We didn't want to be lumped into that. It's like, fine. We're going to tour with all those bands. We're going to be a part of that scene. Like we did tours with Under Oath, and, like they were great,
Okay, so we're moving into the recording of the Satellite Years on Trustkill. Now, the band experienced a couple member changes. We lost the old vocalist, Doug, and founding member Ryan Parrish. So what happened? Was it like a creative decision, or people just had differing ideas of where the band was going to go, or what was the story there?
Well, we just so Doug was gonna work. He was like, I'm gonna work, and he's like, the band. He was like, like I can scream, but I can't sing. But like I think he kind of saw that like we're gonna eventually move in a like kind of more rock and roll direction,
right?
Whatever that is, alternative rock, like hummy kind of stuff. Yeah. Like we always wanted to do that too, and so we just like kind of made it part of the whole thing, you know, because it was like, well, yeah, we're super into these types of bands, and Doug was like, I want to work, like make money, like I want to have a career, and so Jay came in. And he was my roommate in college for a while at UNCC, but then he went to Oklahoma, but then he quit Oklahoma, came back, joined the band in like November of 2001. And then we went to the studio in April of 2002. And then Ryan left the band right after that. And that's just like, it's just a long story.
Yeah,
but like if we could get to like all the other
give
stuff,
me like the 3-sentence version if you don't want to go into the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a really long story, and so it's like, but basically what it came down to is like he wanted to go, I think, musically even in a different direction,
right?
And so eventually he ended up in Celebrity in Nashville. Do y'all know that band, Celebrity?
No.
It is freaking awesome. Like,
I have to check them out.
like they're super like dreamy. So he still puts out music with those guys. They have a band called In Parallel, and they just did like a 5-song EP that's getting mixed with Ken Andrews. Like Ken Andrews from Failure mixed it.
Oh,
okay.
Like, yeah, and they're gonna get it. They're gonna put it out, but like he just went in the more like dreamy, shoegazy direction.
Gotcha.
You know.
So how did you meet new vocalist Jay Forrest?
Oh, we knew him since high school, and he came and hung out in the same parking lot at the youth group. Like, that we were all part of. So like we'd known him for years.
So there's this video floating around. This is like a dream like crafted solely for me. There's this video floating around of you guys recording Satellite Years. Now you're recording Satellite Years. You know, it's a brand new LP coming out on Trustkill, which is a big label at the time. Matt Talbot is recording it. And you guys are like playing GoldenEye. Like, that's essentially like a dream custom tailored for me. Like that just seemed like a great
That's
time.
the Keith trifecta.
He had a great he had this really awesome studio in Tolono, Illinois, and like we would record all day and then like we'd go upstairs at night because you could sleep there, and that was like part of it. It was cool.
Yeah.
Like you'd play GoldenEye. So he'd like come up and play GoldenEye with us sometimes after we were done.
Was he any good?
Chad, our bass player, was by far the best. He pretty much took everybody to school. He's like, dude, I spent 2 years of college playing this game.
I used to be so good. I had the respawn points memorized in the order you would respawn. So like there was just no way you could beat me.
Yeah.
It was awesome, but
That's
terrible
fantastic.
for the other players.
Yeah. No.
So how was it recording with Matt? That's like a dream for me, you know?
It was great. It was awkward at first because we were such big fanboys.
Yeah.
And
did he have to tell you to like chill out or anything?
Yeah, like a bit. And like and like he was going through some like stuff in his own life at the same time that we had like just arrived, and it was our first, like we had just gotten out of college. We'd all graduated college. It was like first time making the record, like getting 15 days in the studio. And so it was just a lot to take in. And like, you know, the first couple days were a little rough, but then we hit our stride, and then we had
always
a lot
how
of
it
fun,
goes.
you know,
Yep.
and then it was just like, okay. And everybody was excited, you know?
Yeah. So I read that he agreed to do vocals on Escape Pod for Intangibles because you beat him in a match of Goldeneye. Is that true?
Chad
did?
Yeah, he talked all this shit, and Chad was just like, okay, well, you're so confident. It's like, you're going to sing on one of our songs if I whip your ass. And he just smoked him.
That's fucking beautiful. And that, you know, that's when I discovered you on that tour. You were on a part of that tour with This Day Forward and Not Waving But Drowning, and I think Open Hand was on it too. This was August of 2002. Now, I had never heard Hopesfall. I don't even know if I had heard of Hopesfall, but the first date,
dude, where the fuck were you?
Dude, I know, man. I was like up my own ass. But the first date of the tour we were in Philly. Now, I was so hungover. Like I didn't go into the show. I was just sitting outside with a bunch of people. And I was like, we're on tour with them. Like, I'll see everybody 10 times. It's fine. So I'm sitting outside, and I hear you guys playing, and I hear that long melodic interlude in End of an Era. And I was like transfixed by it. I was like, I got to hear these guys. I got to see these guys. So I think you gave Brendan, who was then in This Day Forward, now in Circa Survive, I think you gave him in advance of the album. So one night after one of the shows, he was showing me the album, and he played the song that Matt Talbot guests on, Escape Pod for Intangibles. Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And I had never heard of Hum. So like Brendan showed me Hum, and I just, again, was transfixed. So it was like this, you know, this coming together of all these things, and it was awesome. And
yeah, that was our favorite band, dude. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, it literally at one point, I remember, because we went through a lot of member changes, and so it got to the point where it was like, the rule is basically, you've got to like Hum, and you've got to have nothing else to do. Like, because then, like, if we got to go on tour, we're going on tour. Like, this is what
those were the same priorities for my band. I put out a record 2 years ago, and I gave them 2 records in the studio. You know, you like give them records to say like, what do you want to sound like? One was You'd Prefer an Astronaut, and one was Arbiter, your record.
Oh, rad!
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that, but I'm on Satellite Years now. So that record comes out now. That's like a classic record. I kind of lost touch with hardcore around that time, but Satellite Years was one of the last records that I got into it, and I still listen to it to this day. Like whenever I listen to it, it brings me right back to like coming home from tour September, 2002. It's like a time machine dropping right in there, and things really started happening for you guys. You're on tours and Hellfest, and they filmed that video for you. So like, I mean, how did you feel during that time? Like, what was going on?
We were just touring and doing it, and like just like we were hungry. We were like, yeah, let's go. What can we do?
Yeah.
We're just
Did
like
you feel
trying to
like
go.
Did you feel like, man, this is really happening? Like, this is awesome.
We were we were hopeful. Like we were we were excited about it. Like we're like, oh, maybe this is going to take us places,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll get to actually do this for a while.
Did you have to work like regular jobs
Oh,
once you
yeah.
came back from tour, or were
Oh,
you on
yeah.
tour the whole? Yeah.
No, I mean, we go on for 3 months and then come home for like 17 days. And I was really fortunate. Like I had this awesome boss at this pizza place that I worked at. And I'd be like, Rick, I'm going to be gone for like 55 days. And then I'm going to be home for like 18 days. But I need to
Wow.
work doubles all of those 18 days. And he'd just be like, God damn it. But he would like let me do it. And like, cause he liked me. He was like, I was a hard worker. And so he was like, yeah, okay. Like you can do that. And it's like, I swear if it wasn't for like stuff like that, I don't know how we would have made it work.
Were there any really memorable shows during that time? Or was it like all just kind of a blur?
Like, I mean, the tours were, those years just like, there's so many memories, but it was so long ago also.
Right.
Like, but,
I don't remember a lot of it.
It's a blur in my mind now, but I remember how vivid and alive it was, like, and exciting it felt then. Like I remember really feeling alive. Like we're touring, we're seeing the world, like we're doing it, and just being like, maybe we're gonna get to make, like, we just want to make another record and keep traveling. And then and then that was it. That was like, that's what we did for the next however many years.
Like 6 more years or something like that. Yeah.
Wow. 2007 we ended. We ended in 2007.
Okay.
So it was like another 5 years where it was like, that was life. Touring, recording, trying to fit in jobs to put it all together so you could just keep feeding the dream.
A-Types, the next record. Now we lost a few members,
mm-hmm.
and it was a shift in sound for the band. So was the member change? Did people drop out just because they couldn't do it anymore, or did you guys disagree?
Yeah, it was like no, it was more about just like, oh my God, like I can't keep going at this pace type of situation. Right. We lost a couple guys because of that. And but like I think that everybody that I know for a fact that everybody that ended up coming on board, we were all coming from the same mindset. Like Mike, that became our bass player in between, Satellite Years and A-Types. He was our merch guy,
mm-hmm.
And it was just like, oh, he gets it. Like he knows what's up. Like, and he can play. Like, all right, right. You want to do it? Let's do it. And so, and then Dustin came from Saved by Grace. And like we knew we were into the same shit. We were into Mineral and Hum and Hatebreed.
So like,
it was like, okay, yeah, all right, we all get it. Like,
there needs to be more bands that combine all three of those.
Yeah.
We'll get something started after this.
Yeah.
So there was a shift in sound too. Now it's still Hopesfall. Like you still hear, the signature Brigham sound in there, but it was a shift in sound. Was that as a result of new members, or did we say like we're going to try to go into a different direction? Or both?
It was new members, but it was also like, hey, we want to write like some rock and roll songs. Like,
yeah,
like we were like, let's try our hand at that. Like, let's do it. Like, we can do whatever we want. Like this
Yeah.
is what we want to listen to. These are the bands we're like influenced by and what we like. And it's like, let's try this, you know. It was like Cave In was a huge influence on us and stuff like that. And but it was like we always felt like, well, our music had like spacey, rocky vibes to it. Like that we were never really a hardcore band.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we had some heavy riffs, but we weren't necessarily a hardcore band.
Right. Never in the sense of like Poison the Well or other metalcore bands. Like it was always more on the hum side of things and spacey and, you know, like
It
not
was
a lot of
heavy, but it
breakdowns.
was spacey,
Yeah.
you know, and it was like, okay, well, we're still going to keep it heavy and spacey, but we're going to try to like write melodic lyrics over it because like our favorite bands do that.
Yeah.
Like, and we want to do that too, you know?
Right.
And so, and it was different for a lot of people. I think we lost a lot of people with that. You know, we were like, well, this is what it is, man. Like, we're not doing this. Like at the end of the day, we wanted to travel and make music and record, but at the end of the day, the payoff is making music and recording.
Oh,
Travel's a bonus, but it's like, all right, like what music do you have inside of you that you want to make? And it's like when we would get in a room and play, it's like that's what it was. It was never any. I mean, yeah, we want to make songs that sound, you know, like our other influences besides hardcore bands because we love that shit. We love spacey rock. But it was like we said, okay, well, we can do that too. But it wasn't ever like, okay, well, we're putting something aside. We're not going to play like this. If the part got heavy and screamy, we're like, great. But it was like whatever kind of came out was what came out.
Yeah, you're not going to like force it in because
it was
we
like,
have to be a hardcore band.
Like we got to jam, and it's like when everybody's looking at each other and they're like, "Yep, this is what we're doing." Like you know when everybody's happy and vibing, and you know when it's like, "Oh, we're pushing it here, we're forcing this."
Right.
And I was like, that felt natural. That's what.
So how did you feel once the record came out, and what kind of reception did it get? Because I disappeared into like partying, and you know I got really into post rock, so I lost touch with the music for a while. But how'd you feel about it before it came out? Were you nervous, and then like how was the reception?
We were definitely nervous, but like we also were happy with it. You know, we were happy with parts of it. There was some production things that. Like we wish that we'd gotten more time to do a little bit different, but like overall, like looking back on it, I'm super nostalgic about that record because it was an exciting time, you know, and it was like, okay, we're taking a chance here and we're doing something different, but we liked it and we were like, yeah, let's go do it. And that's that.
Yes,
like,
some of my favorite songs are on that record, and I think of the times, you know, Cave In I think was a big influence on everyone. Yeah. So a lot of people were toying with changing up their sound, and you know, Cave In is like a foundational band for me, and they're the band that got me into hardcore.
Cave In was the shit. I mean, they were the fucking real shit. Like,
yeah,
they're a band's band.
Yeah. They're just so good.
They're fucking good.
Oh yeah,
real fucking good.
They're just like modern day heroes in my mind.
Yeah,
like all time classics. Now, I know you had some problems with Trustkill. Everyone knows that. But like what were some of the first things that happened where you're like, this is odd?
So I want to answer your question, but I want to do it briefly.
Briefly?
You know? Yeah, because it's
okay.
Yeah, no, like there's more like I'd rather talk about good times. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like I'd rather remember it fondly and go on good times. There were some things that happened on tour. Things didn't come together the way we thought it was going to come together.
Yeah.
Whether there was some miscommunication there or whatnot, like, hey, but it didn't happen the way we thought things were going to happen. And it was just like, okay, like this sucks, you know, and like we can't make any money and, you know, it doesn't look like we're going to ever make any money. And then that was a huge weight over everybody's shoulders. And, you know, it was a weight. It was,
right.
You know, the albatross, I guess. But like, but you know, like we went on, we made Magnetic North. We all like worked really hard on that and took like 10 months to like get into that and write it. And we were really proud of it. And,
I think that
around
might be overall my favorite. It's hard to pick a favorite, but overall, I think Magnetic North might be my favorite. That is, it just all around a great record.
Thank you. No, it's a
Yeah.
dark record. It's one
Yeah.
of the hard. It's hard to listen to that record for me sometimes.
Is
I
there
just
a lot of
remember there's
personal anguish in it that you put into it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were all going through a really dark time,
So,
and it's all to me. It's all there in that record.
Yeah.
So
and you can hear it because I myself went through some dark times and discovered that record and connected with it, but a little more on that later.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Keith, you got to get back to that because that's one of those things that this is how we bonded over you guys over this over Hopesfall. Was Keith was like, you have to listen to this band, and I was like, all right, calm down. Like, what is in it? He sold me on it so hard, but we'll get back to that. I'm sorry.
We're gonna get back to that. So
just like your buddy Rich, like you gotta watch this show. You gotta watch this fucking show, man.
You have no idea.
You'll rip your fucking arm off.
Tell me some of leading up to recording Magnetic North. So it sounds like everyone's going through a rough time. Like where's everybody's head at? Like lay out some of the situation for me.
We got off Warped Tour and lost a ton of money and just like we weren't getting it was an A-type, so we weren't getting like a good response from it, but like we all believed in it and was wanted to make music, and it just wasn't going our way, and you have your ups, you have your downs, and we're just like, okay, well, it's time to regroup and go write the record we want to write. And we lost a couple more people, no, we lost a drummer and then got another drummer, and it was like, okay, let's do this. And we worked the whole time, lived in Charlotte, practiced like 20 hours a week for like 10 months and wrote it.
So the band ended shortly after that record came out, right?
Right.
So what are as much as you want to share, what are the circumstances around that? Was everyone just burned out?
I'll say this, like my favorite song from the Magnetic North sections isn't on Magnetic North, on the official release of it until later. Let's see here. Hold on. I don't think they did. They end up putting out the vinyl with it. It had Saskatchewan on it, but I don't think
that's such a good song.
I don't think it's on I'm looking on Spotify right now.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah, it's not on there. It's still not on there.
I always have to go to YouTube to listen to it.
And that was my favorite song. And I was like, okay, well, if I don't get to put my favorite song on the record, then I'm done. Bye. And that was it. That was it. I walked away. Right. That was it.
That's
my song's not my favorite song's not on the record. Fine.
Yeah. And
I didn't put in all this time and effort for that. Like, no thanks. I'm over it.
Right.
And that was it.
And
that was the end.
It really is a fantastic song. I was happy that you guys played that when I saw you at St. Vitus.
Yeah, that was fun. No, and that was a point. We were like, we're definitely playing that fucking song.
Oh yeah, you got to. So the band's over. Now this band has been your life for like
9 years at this point.
Not. Yeah. What is your mindset like? Or did you have any idea of what you were going to do? Like, how did you deal with it?
Not at all. The way I described it is I felt like I got dishonorably discharged from the army. And now I'm just a fucking civilian again.
Yeah.
And I have no direction, and I'm not a part of any team, and nothing special about me, and time to get to work. And that was it.
That's devastating though, because you've lived a life where you think like it's nearly a decade where you're like, all right, it's going to happen. Now we're doing what we want to do. And it's like, then to have it all kind of crumble and then have to start from square one. Like it's such a, like, I wish Keith knows this about me, but, so I went to law school for a little bit. And it was one of those things where like all of my friends were like, oh yeah, Tommy, he's real smart. He's going to go to law school. And I hated it. Like I hated everything about it. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to do like I just couldn't stand it. And then to me, like I finally just had to be honest with it and go like, look, this is not what I want it to be anymore. So I don't want it. I'm not doing it anymore. But to have everyone else come back and be like, yeah, but that's what you are. Like, you've defined yourself a certain way for a long period of time.
Not anymore.
Yeah, and then in a moment, it's completely different. It can be like it's one of those things though that I think that's where a lot of change in my life that like I'm pretty sure you had those real moments like after the band was done, you were just like you just sit down and kind of take stock of what you do have. You're like, shit. All right, well, what's my next move? Like where do I go from here and what do I have to be able to do that?
So
Yeah,
what was the first job you had like after the band was done?
I always had the pizza job. So then I got another pizza job during the day and a pizza job during the night. And I saved up a bunch of money. And then I went and I sold merch on Warp Tour for a record label. And I did that for like 5 weeks or so. And I hung out with Circa a lot during that tour. And then, but I had like bought a plane ticket to Europe and I just went backpacking through Europe for like, I sold everything I owned.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like moved back in with my parents for like 6 months, just worked 7 days a week. And then I was like, I'm going backpacking through Europe until my money runs out. And when I get back home, I'll figure it out. And I just got a bartending job. And then I ended up meeting my wife shortly thereafter. And then that really like kind of just set me on a different course, like meeting my wife.
How did you meet your wife?
She was a friend of a friend. And like eventually like my friend Cassie got me in touch with her. And it was at a point where I was considering moving to like Washington, D.C. and like, you know, just pursuing other things. And then I met her and then it was like, oh, well, I guess all my plans are changing now.
Right.
And like, it was like pretty immediate for me. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to, this is now the most important thing in my life. So I'm just going to follow this and see where it takes me. And that's awesome. And like, so we met, I went on one final tour with my friend Anne. I was just her driver and merch guy for a band that she was managing from Norway. And so I met my wife in like November. The tour was like end of December, beginning of January. And I had planned to move to DC in like February 1st. And I got back from that tour and I was like, nope.
So did you have any desire to like start up a new band or get involved with another band?
I was like, I am going to reinvent myself. I'm not doing music. I literally had that thought. Like I've played my last riff. Like I'll never play again. That was my mindset.
That's the same thing Tommy did. Me, I was like,
yeah, dude, I was out.
I was chasing the dragon. I'm like, I need to be in another band, a better band, a band that more suits me. So I was always like chasing it. But Tommy, he did one band and he was like, that's it.
Yeah, dude. As soon as I was like, all right, like I remember, so I did another band a little bit after the band with Anthony, and it was a girl I was dating at the time. It was her younger brother played drums, and they were like a nu metal band, and he was like, they broke up. He was like, hey, I want to play music with you, and I was like, all right. Well, at this point in time, I was really into things like, I was super into. You remember Grade? That was
I love Grade. Separate the magnets under the radar.
Yes. Yeah. So I was fucking super hype on that, and this kid was such a solid drummer. I was like, oh, I want to play with him. But it was always a joke. Like nothing. We literally called ourselves like Jean-Claude Van Damme or some goofy shit. Like something we came up when we were like literally like smoking weed in a parking lot when we were like 17. So it was really fun. But like after that, when everybody was like, hey, you want to start a band? I was always like, no. Immediately, like it was never like it didn't cross my mind. It was an immediate like, no, I don't ever want to do that again. That was an awful experience.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at with it now. Finally, unless my existing band, it might still happen with Tommy. And,
I like that band.
Drummer, yeah. So if I can do that with you guys, I'll do it. But if not, I'm done because it's just a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
the thought of starting a new one, it's like, no.
It's a weird thing. I mean, like I was just like determined that, you know, and I mean, this is like my own like ego. Like I'm not going to let that be the best thing that I do with my life. Like, fuck that. Like,
I love that
because there's so much like there was so much negativity at that point surrounding the band and music, and I was just like, fuck this, dude. I'm out. I'm fucking out. Like I am starting over, whatever that is. Like, and that's where I had to go because and it sounds, I don't know, like I had to get like angry to change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this just sounds so fucking dumb, dude. But like quoting old hardcore lyrics for you guys, One King Down.
No,
fans.
please.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Do you remember the one song where it's like there is more hate than fear?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was like, and like
Yes.
a bunch of Shia Lude lyrics and stuff. And I was just like, you got to get angry and you got to fucking change. And like,
I still read the lyrics to More Hate Than Fear, and I
Yeah.
get like so pumped. He's like, Now look upon these eyes of stone,
Yeah.
and how my times have hardened me." I'm like, "Yes, me
Yeah.
too."
yeah, yeah,
No, I had an immediate
yeah. Let's
like
get tea.
the negative stuff from music for me always outweighed the positive shit. So I was always like, I'm never going back to that because I've done it. It was always a zero-sum game. Like it's always argumentative with people, and it's always it's constant conflict. Let's if I can actively avoid that and make my life happier, I'm going to do that every single time.
Absolutely. And because it's a creative thing, so everybody's got an opinion. You're arguing over opinions, right? There's no
100%.
there's no like standard or objective thing. It's like, well, that sucks. No, it doesn't. It's awesome. No, it isn't. It sucks. And it's just like these are the arguments essentially. Just scale it up to like decisions that affect your income then.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was just like, fuck this. No, I don't want to do this. But then eventually, like a couple years later, I got talked into playing again. Cause you get, like you forget that. So you go long enough being mad, right? And it fuels you to kind of start over and do, I don't know, like whatever it is that you're going to do next. And then like you put some distance between yourself and the band. And then you're like, oh man, remember we were jamming? That was sweet.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then that's it. And then you have that seed is planted and then you're like, God damn it.
So was the next time you played, I know Hopesfall did a 2011 reunion. I think it was like, was it one or two shows with
two shows
with the original singer? Doug.
Yep. Yeah.
So
with Code 7, basically Code 7, there was an awesome venue in Winston-Salem called Ziggy's. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's part of like everybody that was in like the North Carolina punk, hardcore, emo, indie, whatever. Like everybody had been to Ziggy's. Like it was a rad venue, and it closed. And then they were going to reopen it, and they wanted to do a big kickoff show. And Code 7 was like, "Yo, what do you guys think? Like, we're going to do a reunion to be rad if you guys did it too." And we were like, "Yeah, okay, we can do that." And we did just the original, like old school lineup.
Was Ryan a part of that too?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So how was it playing together again with the original lineup after all that time?
Well, it was an original lineup with modifications. Let me make that like, and it's 6 of us ended up playing. Chad, who was the bass player on the Satellite Years, and then also on Arbiter later, he played bass a couple songs, but then Pat, who was the bass player on No Wings to Speak Of, played bass on the rest of the songs. Mm-hmm. So there was 6 of us that got back together. It was fun, but it was also like, this kind of leads into an interesting twist and turn. I forgot about Bangover.
Oh, yeah.
Holy fuck was my neck sore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
after a show, it would just be like pain for a day. You can't move your neck and until you get used to it.
Yeah, and so that was, interesting. Right. And about 2 months later, I slipped a disc in my neck.
Oh, how'd that happen?
The disc just ruptured in the middle of the night. I woke up screaming in pain.
Oh my God.
And my wife was terrified. I mean, I literally woke up out of sleep. So it was like I must have rolled over in bed and the disc slipped.
Oh.
And it completely dislodged between C6 and C7 and slid into the neural canal leading down my right arm, and it paralyzed my right arm.
Oh my God.
And I was in like an excruciating pain, like nerve pain. I don't know if you've ever had nerve pain. Or back issues, like severe back issues.
I have I had sciatica. I guess I still have it, but it somehow just kind of got better. Like it used to be in, and if people don't know, that's the sciatic nerve is the biggest nerve in the body. It
Yeah,
goes
it's as
from
big
your
as your pinky.
yeah, it goes from
Sick.
your lower right back all the way down your leg, and it's so when it gets pinched, you're just your leg and your lower back is in constant pain, and I had that going on, but it just kind of went away somehow.
Well,
It's not so bad now.
yeah. Well, I mean, this is kind of like back pain is something that like also like kind of carried around through the whole band career. Like you're always and this is going somewhere. I'll kind of like just talk this
Yes.
out, but like you're sitting for 8 hours a day in a van, right? And then you get out of these cramped positions and you load heavy gear, and then you headbang, which is an unnatural movement.
Yes.
And then, for 40 minutes, and that's the most physical exercise you're getting typically. And then you load the heavy shit back up and you get back into a van, and then you do it all over again. And you do this for years. And a lot of people, and I certainly didn't realize the effects what those positions and those movements, like what it was doing to my body. But like, on a long enough timeline, you start to complacently adapt to the positions that you are most frequently in. And so for me, and like I was always seated, so my hips were constantly externally rotated. My shoulders were always like kind of like pitched forward, like I was wearing my arms a little bit in front of me. And if you do that really quick and you kind of like move your shoulders forward to look at the horizon or just to look straight forward, you've got to lift your head up a little bit. So you're creating compression at the back of your neck. Your shoulders are kind of caved in, rounded forward. And then all that weight is pushing down into the pelvic bowl, and your hips are externally rotated. So it's like all of the muscles. And if you ever look at like a skeleton or an anatomical drawing, like, or the dissection or something, it's like the body, when they line it up and show it to you, is very straight. And it's like, all right, the feet are pointing straight ahead. The shoulders are wide on top of the scapula, like the collarbones sit up on top, and your neck is long and straight. And it's like, that's not the position that I was in.
Right.
And then after the band, I had gained a decent amount of weight, and I was like, I am fat, like, and I don't want to be fat. And so I started running 5 miles a day. And if you run, like 25 to 40 miles a week, you will lose weight. But I was doing this in a compromised kind of way, unknowingly, because I'm 27, 28 years old, and I'm like, oh, I can run 5 miles, no problem. I'm healthy. I'm fit. I feel good, and, I had, some lingering back issues, and was always getting body work and acupuncture and doing stretches and whatnot. And, but then eventually I got this job at this brewery, and I was like moving kegs around for about a year and a half. And then we played this show. And then 2 months later, I didn't have any like impact injury or anything like that, but like my disc ruptured, paralyzed my arm. My dad had to drive me around because I couldn't even drive a stick shift, and my dad had just retired, so he drove me around. Wow. And eventually I had to have a surgery where they go in through the front of your neck, and they open up the spine, and they put, basically it's like a ball bearing between the vertebrae, between C6 and C7, which is your bottom two, cervical vertebrae. And there's like a metal plate screwed into the bottom of the top vertebrae, and then another metal plate screwed into the top of the vertebrae beneath it, with this ball bearing in between. And so it allows you to still have the full range of motion. And it fixed me. And even the neurologist told me, it was like, when you wake up, you'll know it's different, even in your like anesthetic haze.
Wow.
And so I wake up and I can tell, it's like, oh, I can feel my hand again. Like they go in and they cleaned out all of that disc material that was compressing that nerve, kind of going into the brachial plexus, kind of everything that like controls the ulnar nerve, like controlled everything in my right arm. And so that space was then restored, and I was fixed. And I just had to do the physical therapy, for the next 4 months, but my neck is fine. But in the process of this, so they did MRIs of my whole back. And after I got out of the surgery, the doctor's like, you're going for the post-op. And the doctor's like, so you have the spinal health of an 80-year-old masonry worker.
Oh my God.
He's like, He's like, when I look at this MRI, I'm looking at an old man at the end of his life.
Jeez.
And I was like, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
what the fuck? He's like, so I was like, why? And he just kind of like shrugs, like, I don't know.
Well,
Like bad genes, like, and my sister had to have back surgery. My parents have both had back surgeries. So genetically we're not batting 1,000, but he tells me I have degenerative disc disease.
oh no.
And I believe him. And, and he's like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a runner. He's like, don't do that anymore. He's like, so I like mountain biking. He's like, yeah, you should stop that. Like
Right.
you are going to 100% need a triple lumbar fusion surgery within the next 4 years of your life. By the time you're 35, you're going to have to go and have titanium rods implanted in your lower spine because 90% of the disc space is just used up. It's gone.
Oh my
And
God.
so my life then over the next 4 years kind of became, I was like determined that wasn't, like I'm not having that surgery because I watched a family member have that surgery and it's horrific. Like you're on your back for 6 months.
I was just going to say, what's the recovery time on something like that?
6 months. They cut through the entire posterior chain of muscles on your body.
Holy shit.
Drill holes through the vertebrae, implant titanium rods in there so that the bone ossifies around it and it makes just one giant vertebrae. So instead where you had 3 vertebrae stacked on top with discs in between.
Yeah, you just have
now you just have one giant bone. So you lose, and it's not like the lumbar spine is supposed to have a ton of articulation and rotation. That's a point where you should be really stable.
Yeah.
Right? Like you should be moving at the hips and not at the spine. But that takes away any motion you have and then increases the just imagine like the torque and the force above and below that joint. So now it would be really degrading. The movement would be sending force into the where the sacrum and L5 come together, and then like the top of it, which would have been L3, L2. So it would have increased the flexion and extension at those points, which would just further down the road cause your disc to degenerate faster. So, I was like, no, it's not gonna be me. I'm gonna keep running. I'm gonna keep working out, and like. But slowly but surely it got to a point where I was like, I couldn't do that stuff anymore. I was getting cortisone shots directly into my spine.
Holy shit.
I was on all the painkillers.
Were you on good ones like Oxy and Percocet and stuff?
Yeah, there were times where those were definitely prescribed to me,
There you go.
But it got to a point where it was like, dude, I fucking hate opiates, man. Like I'm definitely into drugs, but I don't like opiates, like I like the plant-based.
Yeah.
Did you ever, so how long were you on opiates? You never had a problem?
No, I hated it. I mean, and like the heavy hitters, I wouldn't get all the time. It would be like when I was like, okay, I need a cortisone injection. Like, and they were like, you can't have another one of these. Like you've had too many directly into this part of your spine. And I mean, so I would go and lay on a traction table at the physical therapist where they literally lay you down flat, put this harness around your neck, and then kind of Velcro your feet to a board. And you'd be laying flat, and they would literally, and it's like, it has like a winch like on the front of a truck.
It just like crank it up, right?
Pulls your body apart. And it feels incredible because it's creating space where there isn't space. And so,
because your body's been compressed the entire time and now you're
exactly.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
crazy.
it's like, so there's a lot of relief there. And so I'm doing like inversion tables and, all the physical therapy but nothing is permanent, nothing is providing me any sort of like permanent relief. And it's getting to the point where now it's limiting my motion where when I wake up in the morning, my wife has to put my socks and shoes on for me. Because I can't bend over for the first 2 hours of the day. Eventually, I can warm up enough and move enough that through the rest of the day, I can move. And if I'm moving, I feel good. But if I'm stationary, I'm in pain. And so every night you go home and you go back to bed and you wake up and you repeat that routine. And it was getting pretty drastic. And I'm like, my wife is essentially my caretaker at this point. I couldn't do my life if I didn't have somebody to help me, And like that was really emotionally and mentally, that takes its toll. Is like that kind of pain it eventually causes, it fear. And when you're in a place of like fear, like nothing in your life, that's your baseline. It's like, oh, I don't want to injure myself. Like subconsciously, if like everything about you is protective and cagey, and you just kind of become a shadow of yourself. And it was like getting so bad, I was like, I'm gonna have to have the surgery. Like, and my wife, who is, essentially my dressing me, and, like she's researching on the internet. We're looking at all kinds of goofy shit. And like, but she finds this book called From Pain to Performance. And so she orders it for me and the DVDs, and she's like, what do you have to lose? Like, this guy said he fixed his back. Read this book. Here's some exercises. Why don't you just at least give it a shot? And I'm like, okay, like anything, like I'm desperate, like truly desperate. So I get this book, and the guy's got a company. It's called Foundation Training. And it was a doctor. His name's Eric Goodman. And he was a chiropractor, but also a strength and conditioning coach for the U.S. Olympic water polo team.
Oh, geez.
The men's water polo team. And he was like 27, 28 years old. And he was like getting this water polo team ready for the Beijing Olympics in 2008. And his back slips on him. And he goes out and he goes and gets an MRI. And it's like, oh yeah, your sacrum's fusing into L5. L5's fusing into L4. You need a triple lumbar fusion surgery. Same thing that I needed.
Yeah.
And so he's like, no, I know enough about back surgeries. And because of my knowledge of anatomy and my medical training and my study of movement, and being a health and conditioning and strength coach, he's like, I should be able to like reverse engineer this. And so he uses himself as patient zero and just tries to come up with like a system of like movements and like breathing techniques where literally, because pain, if you understand it, is the result of compression. Like it's the nervous system doesn't have the space it needs because the places where it is are collapsing into itself because of your internally rotated shoulders, your neck carrying out in front of you, your hips externally rotated, you're seated all the time, And so it's like, that's not a natural position. Like if you think about the 250,000 years of natural selection that occurred before we invented agriculture and the ability to write our own story down. Like if you couldn't move, you were a meal.
Yeah, you were dead.
Yeah.
Like at that point, like that's in your DNA. And now, in the 8,000 years since that point, since we like, developed enough and like our brains got big enough, and now we've got all these like our cognitive skills, like we've become by far the most adaptable creature on this planet. And we're definitely the dominant species. But like the way you moved back in the day when you were evading tigers and fucking bears and shit, it's like you weren't wearing shoes. You weren't sitting at a desk. Like that's the frame you inherited. 8,000 years isn't long enough evolutionarily to change a species so totally, right? So we're putting ourselves into all these unnatural positions all the time. And this guy's like, I see these patterns, like when I look at the whole body, and like I need to develop these exercises to reverse the specific patterns that are the problems that get caused from like sitting, and how that just the musculature of the body gets a little bit twisted off its axis. And so then when you start adding motion and you start adding weight to that motion, instead of like connected chains of muscles dispersing force across an entire system with the idea of like tensegrity, then force is transferring into a joint or into soft tissue somewhere. So it's like, if you just imagine, we've been wearing shoes since our parents put them on our feet when we were 2. It's like over 40 years, your hamstring shortens a little bit because you've got this heel. You're tilted up, right? So you're losing an 1/8 of an inch, a 1/4 of an inch of space. Well, what that does, it tightens the hamstring, so it's kind of ratcheting down. So it's pulling on the back of your body. It's kind of like pulling you a little bit. And then you sit all the time and your legs splay open, and all those muscles on the inside of your legs, the adductors, there's 5 of them, big muscles, big, powerful muscles. Like they just kind of, you lose it,
Yeah.
And so this guy was like, okay, everything that I'm going to teach has internal rotation at the hips, external rotation at the shoulders. And then if you breathe, and if you can try this right now, if you take a giant deep breath, like as big as you can, like a big 3-second inhale in through the nose, like you physically get larger, right?
Oh yeah. Like your chest puffs out now. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So but it's like now try to take that same deep breath, and when you exhale, tighten the abdomen so that you maintain that space, right? You feel how many muscles turn on in your body?
Oh yeah.
And like how much is just turned off when you let that breath go and now just sit back into your normal position. It's like those muscles aren't working. They're just there, right? But if you were standing and moving, like they'd have to participate a little bit more. And so everything was like, imagine your lungs is like a balloon, and when you inflate it, it expands top to bottom, side to side, front to back. Well, your lungs are like a giant balloon inside your body. You have 2 of them. And so it's like, all right, let's line up the body into these like biomechanically more correct positions to make your movement more efficient. And then let's like hinge a little bit and like let's add weight, like isometric poses with like eccentric loading, where the muscle, like if imagine you're doing a bicep curl, right? And your arms out straight. When you curl up, the bicep contracts, right?
Yeah.
But then when you let it go and say you had that weight in your arm and you're doing the negative and you're letting your arm go about straight when the muscle's lengthening, when you lengthen it under tension, that's a contraction as well, but it's an eccentric contraction. This is Tom Brady's whole thing, TB12 and all that. He does his regimen is very eccentric. Because it's like, if you think about it, the muscle at length, that when it contracts, it creates force. When it lengthens, it's absorbing force. So the goal of foundation training is to connect the posterior chain, which is the largest chain of muscles on your body. And it goes from the back of your head to the bottom of your feet. And, get those muscles to work together as a team across the entire system. And that's where most people are disconnected from themselves. They sit all the time, the muscles just adapt to those positions, and then they're off axis and they can't connect with their teammates as they were designed to. And so that's why like 80% of people complain of like back problems, like sciatica and stuff like that. Yeah, the largest nerve in your body innervates from L4, L5 and like shoots off. And again, it's as big as your pinky, and that goes right past like the top of your femur and the back side of your ass, and there's all these little muscles there, particularly the piriformis, which is a very short muscle that's like when it contracts, it allows the hip to externally rotate, right? And the opposite of that is like the muscles on the inside of your legs, like when you contract them and kind of like, I don't know, imagine like you're rolling your femurs in towards each other, like you're rolling up a scroll.
Oh yeah.
It like lengthens the back side there. So you just, if that's always, if it adapts over 30 years of sitting, and that piriformis is then tighter now, just the same way like your hamstrings got shorter because of those things. So you've got all these little micro things over a lifetime just pulling on you, putting you into these positions. And so I started reading this and I was like, no wonder I'm so fucked up.
Yeah.
Like I sat in a van for 8 hours a day, lifted heavy shit, headbanged, lifted the heavy shit again, and got back in a van. And I did this for years. And then I started running 40 miles a week on top of that. And then I started lifting 150-pound kegs all the time at this brewery. I was like, no wonder my neck. And then that show, no wonder I fucked up my neck. No wonder. And so it was like a light bulb went off.
So what did you do? Like, what were the steps to? Now, first, let me ask: through the skills you learned in foundation training, have you been able to reverse everything and like?
Absolutely, 100%.
Wow.
And to the point where it's like, so I found this at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, and I was just kind of like doing these movements by myself at home with the DVD and looking at the pictures in the book and kind of reading it. And like 6 weeks into it, I'm like, oh, I can tie my shoes again, like in the morning.
Wow.
And so I started getting into it a little bit more, and they have this discovery workshop that's going to be hosted in Charlotte at the end of 2015, I believe. And it's like $500 for a 5-hour presentation, but they're going to have like 2 of like the master instructors from California there. and it's at this CrossFit gym in Charlotte. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. My wife's like, you gotta go. You gotta learn more about this, So I go, and they basically just everybody in that workshop was either like somebody in the military whose parachute didn't open, or like a former hockey player that had like concussion injuries, and like, bodybuilders that were like, past their prime, but just like they were big, strong, muscular people, but they couldn't fucking move.
Yeah.
And they were hurting, and it was like, and the other half of the people there were like physical therapists and personal trainers. And they're like, everybody's got back pain. Like what like we're here because it's like, that's what this program does. It's like targeted specifically for people that are in chronic pain to teach you how to reverse it and get out of pain. So the first 2 hours of this 5-hour thing, they just throw up anatomy slides and have like a discussion, and they show a video of like the lungs, but like an animation of like the lungs breathing, and like how like when you get to full expansion on a breath and then to maintain that space and stay upright, how many muscles like fire to do that. And like, I mean, there are hundreds of muscles connected to your spine. Tiny little, the multifidi and the or multifidi and the paraspinals and the spinal erectors and like all these little things. And it's like, nobody's working that out because it's hard to work it out. You can't do it by going to the gym and doing some like isolated move.
Yeah.
It's like, you have to do this like full body
compound type stuff. Yeah.
And so it's like, so I started doing that, and I met one of the guys there, and there was one dude that taught this shit in Charlotte, and his name's Shane. And I met him at that, and I was like, hey, you live in Charlotte. Like, we're friends now. And I would literally go to every single class that he had. And I mean, he'd teach at chiropractic clinics, yoga studios, like just in the park. He'd just like throw up on Instagram, like, oh, I'm going to teach an FT class in the park. Be here at 12. Like, I would go to all of these. And eventually he was like, hey, you practice every day. I'm like, yeah, because it's like, we share our stories. And I'm like, I have to do this. Like, like this is truly transformative. It's given me my life back, and I can move again and do all the things. And I'm not scared. I'm not in fear of pain. And that really was like one of the hugest things, was just like, okay, I don't fear this anymore.
Right.
And I know how to counteract it if I do injure myself or do, in a moment of unconnectedness, like make a movement that like hurts me. I'm like, okay, well, now I know what to do. So I would go, and he was eventually like, you should just help me teach these classes, because it's like, it's much easier with two people. Like, you can just stand there and do the movements, and I'll cue people and go around and do like hands-on cues and stuff like that. And so for 3 years, every class that he did on the weekends at night, I'd go to every single one, because it's like, I'd get a great workout out of it, doing the motions, right, and feeling stronger. And then, but I'd tell everybody about it, like, oh, dude, you got to come to Foundation. And everybody's like, yeah, whatever, Josh, like whatever. And I was like, dude, seriously, like you can like these movements, and like I get like super amped. I mean, you can tell I'm super amped about it. Like I just for 30 fucking straight minutes.
Well, it saved your
like
it essentially saved your life.
Yeah,
you must feel incredibly lucky that you found this at the right time,
dude.
And that it's helped
like
you so.
So incredibly lucky. And so at the end of 2018, I was just like, dude, no one's listening to me. Like, I'm gonna go get certified.
Yeah.
So I went out and got certified to teach it at the end of 2018, and then March 1st of this year, the last weekend of February, first weekend of March, I was out in San Diego for the level 2 certification of it. So like I teach it here. Well, before the COVID thing, I was teaching like 4 classes a week.
Oh, nice.
But no. So when you were Tommy, when you're talking about like teaching, yes, like I totally get that.
Oh yeah,
because it's like, how do you get somebody who's unaware of them? They're unaware of how they are in space, if that makes sense. And it's really
because you're literally
concept.
You're reprogramming, however old they are, you're reprogramming how they thought about how their body moves and contorts and acts. Like it's you're changing people's thought processes, and it's
because you have to use the nerve. The muscle is dumb and strong, right? Like the muscle memory is kind of a misnomer. It's like you're retraining a pattern in your nervous system.
Yeah.
And to do that, you've got to do these new movements, but you've got to be like very aware of what you're doing because you're this neural repatterning. So it's like it's an awareness practice as much as it is a strength and conditioning practice, as much as it is a breathing practice.
Yeah.
And so it's like all three of these things. So it's like you're putting breath work, you're tensioning chains of muscles and finding connection, and you're paying very much attention to all of it. And it's hard.
Yeah.
Like the movements themselves are fundamentally simple, but there's so much complexity in the simplicity. And that's like the beautiful thing. It's like a beautiful pop song, right? Like this, like I say foundation training is like the Mr. Brightside of movement practices.
I love that.
You know, it's like, it's the perfect dose of what you need. It's compact. It's simple. You can do it anywhere. It's simple, but in that simplicity, you'll never reach the end of it.
Yeah.
Like you can't get too good at breathing. You can't get too good at hinging. You can't get, too connected muscularly and in space and in control of yourself. You'll never top out.
Yeah.
Right. You'll just keep going deeper. And you look at like examples of people like that, like got this, like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
You know, like people that fucking got it, and you can see it. Like, and now, so all I see is posture.
Yeah.
When I'm looking.
Yeah, in fact, when you were talking about like how people sit, I kind of like sat up straight. I was like, oh man.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, oh,
you got to sit on the end of your seat with your spine and think your spine is far away from your sacrum as possible, and like your neck is long and flat. It's like it requires effort to sit like that. So if you're doing it, try squeezing your legs together because it makes it a little bit easier. So with that platform of your legs squeezing together, and then the back of your neck kind of pulling as tall as it can, like you have a knife point right under your chin, and then you take a nice big breath in that position, right? And you don't let the ribs flare out, right? You're not trying to like breathe so that the ribs push forward and your back extends and you crease your back. You're trying to keep that length, right? And so you take a nice big breath as hard as you can in and up, and you're expanding away from the base, the pelvis where those legs are connected there. You take a nice big breath, and it's like you can fire up your body just sitting still right there and holding it like that. And it's fatiguing.
Yeah.
You guys trying that?
Thing, I did just try it, and it felt good. I'm going to continue to do it. That's I always sit in an upright chair. With a back, which because I don't like to just lay in bed or lounge on the couch because I get too tired. And I live in New York City, so I walk a lot more than the average person. So I'm happy about that. And that's the thing with I had this on my list of things to talk about because I really I read about the work you did with foundation training, and I really connected with it in the sense that for a long time in my life I really struggled with drugs and alcohol, and the answers like to your problems are so hard to find. I tried doctors and medicine, and it just didn't work out for me. Like I would go to a doctor. One doctor said like I can't help you with that. Or doctors would give you a prescription, or they would just nothing really worked. So I eventually found something that worked, and it wasn't medicine. It was like connections through people to get me out of my isolation, and connection with myself to recognize my own bullshit and be able to change it. And the right help is really hard to find, and I wish more people were willing to do it. And not just about drugs and alcohol, but about anything. Because like to really change takes so much effort. It's like the hardest thing in the world to do because people don't want to get out of their routines. Like to tell someone, hey, you have to start exercising every day. They're not going to do it. They're going to die. Like so you tell someone, hey, you've been drinking for 20 years. You have to stop. You're going to die. Most people are going to keep drinking and die. Like, or they're going to go to a doctor and get some medicine, and they get patched up and sent right back out, and that's not the answer all the time. And I recognize that for some people it is. Like, medicine helps some people, and but it just wasn't. It wasn't the answer for me.
Well, like what people come to the realization is with a lot of stuff is that the work to get better is intense, and it's not something that it's not like, doing something physically exerting once. It's like, oh no, this is a continued practice that I'm now going to have to maintain. Like,
Exactly.
This has to become a lifestyle
Yes.
now. Like you've got to commit to it. And yeah, it's like if you become committed to that, but it's like nobody gets better without first having the idea that they can get better.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's like if you can like plant that seed in somebody, it's like, dude, you can get better. And that was the thing that like was so inspiring to me, is like, because this doctor's like, I fixed myself. And I can teach you how to fix yourself, but it's like at the end of the day, if you fix yourself, you fixed yourself. Like no one can do it for you. You've got to do it for you. And like that's super empowering. Like to be like, because that's something then you take with you the rest of your life, and you've got this new skill. You know, I used to think when I was like really down and out, like, dude, you ran a fucking marathon. You could do it. Like you can fucking do it. But like now when I look back on it, it's like, dude, you got yourself out of crippling pain where a lot of people don't. And it's like, I would never have thought 5 years ago I'd be grateful for that experience, right? Of like severe nerve damage and pain. But it's like, I don't know, like it gave it, finding foundation training and being like able to like teach that and get that out is like, it's literally the most rewarding feeling.
And that's what I was just going to say.
Somebody gets out of pain because you taught them how, but they did it themselves.
Yeah.
So now you can give back if people want the help. They have they have you as an option.
Well, the problem for me though is that like I get a little preachy, and like I don't know. I mean, like, dude, I can just dominate a conversation with this, like which I have just now done, which I apologize for. You know what I mean?
Man.
But it's like, I'm like, dude, you can do this. Like, I can help you change. And people get like weirded out a little bit because I'm just too intense. And my wife's like, dude, you got to fucking tone it down, dude. Like, you're gonna turn people off because you're just too intense about it. And I'm like, okay, you're right. So I gotta
be sly about it, so they don't think it's like a sales pitch or a cult or something. Just be like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Check it out.
Yeah, I'm not good at that. Like I'm all in, It's like even with the band, it's like, hey, we're either gonna fucking write music or we're not. Like one or the other. Like, what is it? Is everybody on board? Let's fucking do this. That's that kind of mindset.
That's a good segue, Josh. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So the last Hopesfall album was 2007, was it?
Magnetic North was 2007, yeah.
Yeah, so and then there's a reunion show in 2011, and then
Arbiter.
And then there's a long time till we get to Arbiter. So let's talk about some of the events leading up to that. Were you in touch with all the guys? How did you start writing music again?
Chad and Adam got me to play in another band, and we were playing with our buddy Ethan, and we were doing it on like Saturday mornings, and we were jamming, and it was fun. And we just kind of lost our head of steam. Like we'd written a bunch of songs. We wrote like 8 songs. We recorded like 4 of them, but we just kind of like lost the thread, like life intervenes. And meanwhile, I'm going through all of this. All this back pain stuff is starting to kind of start to present itself in my life,
Yes.
So we kind of lose the head of steam. And then I talked to Dustin, who was the guitar player for A-Type's Magnetic North Arbiter. And we're like, dude, we should play. Like, let's jam with Adam, like just for fun. And so we would go bowling on Wednesday nights, and then we would jam. Or we would jam first, and then we would go bowling.
Right.
and so, I mean, this is like 2009. So this is only like 2 years after we broke up.
Oh.
I got talked back into it, but it was never going to be Hopesfall.
Yeah.
We were just writing, and we wanted to start another band. So a couple different people played with us over the time. Mikey, who was in Hopesfall as well, but then he moved away. And then eventually we all went to see Hum and Failure in 2015.
Yeah,
it was me and Chad and Adam and Dustin and a bunch of our other friends and wives. And like we went and saw Hum, and we saw Matt and talked with him for a little bit. Awesome. And basically, like, Chad was like, dude, I'll play with you guys. Like, we should play. And so we were like, yeah, we should. And so we had these songs, you know, that we'd kind of had and we'd made demos of with our buddy. This guy named Kit had made demos for us. And then eventually, like, we talked to Jay about singing on it. And eventually, you know, I've always stayed in contact with Mike Watts, who runs Voodoo Studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just telling him, like, dude, you should give us a deal, like, so we can come up and record. He's like, what, you did make a new Hopesfall? And we're like, no, it's not Hopesfall, dude. It's just, he's like,
so even
well,
at
it's
this
all
point,
of the people from Hopesfall. And we're like, yeah, but it's not Hopesfall. Like, we're done with that. Like that was the past. And
so even at that point, it was still not Hopesfall.
Right.
Okay.
And so, and we'd already had like 5 songs written, you know, I mean, over the course of, we're talking like, now this is 2009 to 2015. Like we'd go 6 months without playing, you know, like at times, or, you know, we'd have big gaps and whatnot, but like every now and then we'd find a routine and we'd stick with it for a while. Then we'd fall off. Then we'd find another routine and stick with it and fall off. And so anyway, Mike Watts is like, I send him the demos. He's like, you mind if I show these to some people? I'm like, no, not at all. Like, yeah, like if somebody wanted to put it out, like it's not Hopesfall, but it's all of us. So,
yeah.
And so he calls Will Putney, and Will Putney's like, if they call it Hopesfall, we can do something. If not, then we can't. Like, you know, like there's value in that brand.
Yeah.
So to speak. I hate talking about the band as a brand, but I've eventually, you know,
You recognize
it is.
Yeah, you recognize
it is, you know, and it's like, and then I also realized it's like me just not calling it Hopesfall, just being like stubborn, like, no, it's not Hopesfall. We're doing a new thing because that's done. It was really just my own pride. It was like I didn't want to go back to Hopesfall because it had there was a lot of negative energy back there, and I didn't want to go back there, you know.
Right.
But eventually I had to, like, you know, it was apparent. They were like, you know, they hooked us up with EVR and Graphic Nature, Will and Dan's project. And they're like, look, if you call it Hopesfall, we can repress all that old vinyl and, you know, you've got something that people want.
Yeah.
And we're finally like, okay, well, you know, and we deliberated on it. Like we didn't want to do it, but like eventually, like Jay was always pushing for us to do it, the singer. And I was always very hesitant and very resistant to that idea.
Were you afraid some bad stuff might come up again or something like that?
Yeah, I just wanted it to be different.
Yeah.
You know, but it's all the same people, you know, and it's all in its music, or not all the same people. Like Hopesfall's had so many members over the years, right? Like it was everybody that had at some point been in the band. You know, and so we were like, okay, well, we're going to do it. And so we took the next 2 years to finish writing. We wrote like 6 more songs. And then that collection of songs is Arbiter. And we were thinking we were going to call the band Arbiter.
Yeah.
But then that ended up becoming the album title.
Yeah. So you were sitting on that album for a little while, right? Because I remember following this on social media. And at one point the band posted like, hey, the album's done. We're just waiting, and that was in like January, and the album didn't come out to July. Were you like crawling out of your skin waiting for this thing to come out?
The album we so check this out. So we tracked for like 15 days or something in January of 2017. We didn't finish the vocals and mixing until July of 2017.
Oh,
so because we just. It was like we've got lives and jobs and stuff, and so it was like me and Jay would fly back there on weekends a couple times to like finish up the vocals and, you know, kind of tweak things and, you know, and so July of 2017 is when it finally was done, and then it got mastered. I think, you know, maybe like in August or September, and then it was basically like we turned it in, and we're just like, look, you guys can put this out whenever it makes sense in your release schedule for EVR, because we're not playing shows. We're not going to do it. Like, this is it. And that was part of the deal too. It's like, look, don't expect us to play. Like,
and they were okay with that.
We'll give you a record, but we're not going to play shows. And they were like, okay. And which is really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Of them to be like, okay, on your terms, man, like whatever it is you need, you know. But so then the year goes by after we write and record, you know, after the record's recorded, and so it's like January of 2018 now, And they're like, you guys, you think you could play some shows to support this record? And we're like, okay. You know, so
Yeah.
so then it came out in July of 2018, and we took like the first half of that year to try to, you know, get together and practice and get back up to a place where we could play. And then in July, we played those 3 shows of 2018. We played 2 in Brooklyn and 1 in Charlotte. And then we
Right.
haven't
I was
played
at
since.
the second night of the St. Vitus show, and it was a trip to see you guys again after all those years. And you know, when the first single came out, H.A. Wallace Space Academy,
Yeah.
I was like, this is going to be the record of the year. Like, this is going to be my favorite record of the year, and it was. It was really good because, you know, a lot of times a band will go away for a long time and then come back with a new record, and you're like, you know. But I have to say, Arbiter. It's hard for me to pick a favorite Hopesfall record, but Arbiter was just like, you came back better and stronger than ever, and it was it's a very, very good record.
Thanks, dude. Yeah. It's like, but it's one of those things where I look back at the band and like the progression and the people that were in it. It was like, whatever group of people we had, it was always just about like chasing that energy. Like, what are the 4 of us when we're writing music? Like when everybody like locks eyes and was like, oh yeah, that was it. That's all Hopesfall's ever been. Is chasing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, whatever that is, it can, I don't care what it sounds like. It could be a heavy riff. It could be a spacey part. Like, we've got all these similar influences, like, you know, and everybody kind of brings their own flavor to the table.
Right.
But again, that unifying theme, like Hum and Shiner and like a few like hardcore bands that we're all really into, Cave In and stuff like that. It's just like whatever comes out in the room that we're stoked about, that's what Hopesfall is.
Yeah.
When I heard, has this ever happened to you? Like, I heard Arbiter and I was like, this, it's like they went in my brain and took it out. Like, this is the record I want to put out. Like, this is the music I want to write. It just aligned perfectly with everything like that I imagined myself doing in music.
Oh, rock and roll, man. Yeah, no, it just, that's what it is. We get in a room and somehow mash shit together.
Yeah.
And you're always chasing a feeling. And it's like, I'll describe it to people, for like every like 25 hours of practice, you come up with like 1 minute of like recordable content.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like banging your head against the wall. But it's like, if you're like, okay, if we do this enough, like there will be these moments and these nuggets that'll just jump out and everybody will catch the vibe. And then we'll follow that and the song will write itself.
I love it. I love discovering those moments. And, you know, you have a song you can't do anything with, and then you finally fucking figure it out. Or, you know, you labor over
or you don't
a song together. Yeah, or you just drop it.
Or you drop it. You're like, okay, we can't pick the lock on this one.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, and then you move on.
I was excited to see that Ryan Parrish is back in the fold now.
Right. So Dustin, after the July 2017 shows, we were like, look, because that was it. I mean, we were like, we're going to do 1 record. That's it. We're not putting any pressure on ourselves. Let's just do this and have fun. Right. And when it's all over with, we'll have a conversation. Like, is this something everybody can make time for in their lives? Is everybody willing to sacrifice, you know, and travel, and it's going to cost money? And it's like, you know, like all those things. And 4 out of 5 of us were like, yeah, like that was fun enough that I want to continue to do it. And Dustin, I mean, to Dustin's credit, he's like, dude, I want to play music, but it's like, I don't want to commit to that and playing shows and being on a schedule. It's like, you know, I'm almost 40 years old. Like I want to live the life I want to live, and Hopesfall. Like he's like, I love playing music with you guys. But he's just like, I'm not willing to make that commitment right now. Like, I'm trying to build a studio in my house. And it's like, I've only got so much time. And, you know, and I'm like, dude, I totally get it and totally appreciate that. Like, don't be in Hopesfall out of a sense of like, I'm letting the other people down.
Like out of obligation.
You know, to continue, you know, out of obligation. Like, don't do that. And I was like stoked. He's like super honest about it. He's like, dude, I don't want to make that commitment. Because it's like, I have things I want to do with my life. And I'm like, I 100% respect that. Right. And I was just like, you don't mind. Like, I was like, we're going to call Ryan. Because the 4 out of 5 of us are like, hey, this would be a fun little side project. This would be something fun to do. And we get to make music. And so we called Ryan and we're like, hey man, what do you think? You know, he lives in Nashville. And he's like, you know, like initially, yeah, it sounds like a really good idea. He's like, let's get in a room together and jam over Christmas and just like see what happens, you know? Then we got in a room and in 2 days we'd written a song and it was like, okay, yeah, we can do this. You know, like
was that song Hall of the Sky?
No, that was a different one. We recorded 3 songs last April, April 2019.
So what's the plan with the other 2?
It's gonna come out. Well, I don't know. Honestly, like it was supposed to come out last year.
Yeah.
But things just keep getting pushed back, and it just kind of is what it is. But like we're in no rush. I mean, like we put out Hall of the Sky back in February because we were supposed to go to Japan.
Right.
Taken.
Right.
Y'all know Ray?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Taken. When the hell was that?
They played with us in This Day Forward in Canada.
Yeah, I
Were you
used
there?
I used to see. I was never on tour out with them, but they were always around back in the day. So I would see them, and I just saw them play. They did a little tour last year, I think.
Yeah.
So we did. I saw them. They were great. You know, it was a real trip to see them again.
Well, Ray had reached out to me because we did a podcast together a couple years ago, or for his podcast, because he works in podcasts, like he works for iHeartRadio. And he's like the head of their podcast division.
Okay.
But he does. He can't sit still either. He's got projects out the wazoo. He's got all kinds of stuff going on. So he texted me from Japan when they were over there, like 2000, end of 2018, I believe, and was like, "Yo, the promoter over here is like, we should do a Hopesfall Taken tour. Would you guys be down?" And we were like, fuck yeah. Like, how do we make this happen? Because it's like every time we were supposed to go to Japan back in the day when we were touring, it always fell apart and we never got to go. And that was like a huge regret. We did Europe, we did South America, and we always want to go and do Asia. We never got to Australia. We never got to New Zealand. So we were like, okay, yeah, we'll definitely do it. And so we were supposed to go like last week. You know?
So is that going to still happen at some point, or is it totally
We're hoping
canceled?
to, but it's like, I mean,
you just don't know. Right?
Yeah, we're committed to making it happen when the world finds its new balance.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever that.
Who knows when that's going to happen? I hope sooner than later, but it's crazy. Like so many good shows were happening. So many good shows were happening in March and April, and they're just all gone.
Yeah.
So it's wild. The music industry is done, except of course this wonderful podcast. You know, we are carrying
the torches is still lit.
This is the one thing that's been consistent in my life.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
I'm
so glad we have this because who knows what I'd be doing? Playing more video games, I guess. But Josh, if I can say something now, you know, like I mentioned before, like I had struggled with drugs and alcohol for a lot of my life. And in 2017, I guess I was at my worst point and I was high as hell. And I was like, you know what? Let me throw on the worst stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The worst stuff. The worst stuff you can imagine. And
meth?
I guess
we're bringing it back to meth. Were you smoking meth?
No, if I could find it, I would have done it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you know, I guess I was trying to reconnect with my past, and I'm like, let me throw on Satellite Years. I remember that being good, and I was like, hey, this is good. Like, these guys have other albums. I've never even heard them. Like, let me check it out. So I discovered, you know, so as I was getting my shit together, like I was kind of working through your discography. So I discovered A-Types and then Magnetic North, and you know, Tommy's like my wife. I like text him every day. So so every time I discover a new song, I'm like, check this one out. Check this one out. Like, so Hopesfall kind of became the soundtrack to like me getting my shit together, which I finally did after a long time. And so it was just really awesome. Like when I heard you guys were writing again, and then a new album was coming out, and then just all it culminating with me seeing you guys again, I was like, yeah, man, it was just like, it was a wild journey. So I thank you for your musical contributions in that band.
That's awesome, dude. That's just wild. Like, but yeah, that's like, it's super great to hear, you know?
So
because
you helped.
the stuff takes on a life of its own. It becomes whatever. Different people, like, I mean, you look back at certain records, they mean so much to you.
Yeah.
And like yeah, I've got those records where it's like, this shaped this part of my life. Like,
Yes, I love that.
and it's like, this was the thing I was just vibing on. Like, I love thinking about that music or listening to that music, and you know what I mean? So I get it. It's cool that like we got to be a part of that.
Yeah,
those stories that you'll never know, that we'll never hear. It's cool to get to hear one.
Exactly, and that's why I like telling them. So why don't we close out by let's talk about what we're going to do for the remainder of the pandemic. Now this podcast is fairly new. Tommy and I were talking about doing it for a long time because we have really similar music taste, and we were talking. We were like planning for a little under a year, and then we got together and we did it, and it's been going great. I love it. There's an Instagram page that accompanies it. It started as an Instagram page.
What's the Instagram page?
It's the NE Scene. We actually follow you, so just look at your followers. It started as an Instagram page where we just posted show videos and flyers and ticket stubs and that.
Just old stuff we had sitting around. Well, actually, old stuff Keith had sitting around. I had nothing, basically.
Yeah.
But eventually I got the idea to do the podcast. I'm like, dude, we know all these bands. Like, we love this shit. Let's do this. So, the podcast takes up a lot of time. I love it. I love doing it. And I can still do it in the midst of this thing, which is awesome. And there's so many good video games out right now. I'm way into Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, playing online with people, Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake is out in a couple days. So I'm having the time of my life,
Right on.
No offense to anyone struggling or has lost people. I don't mean to offend anybody, but I'm doing okay so far.
Everybody's going to have a different experience of this time.
Yeah, I still have
it is your own, and it's what you make it. So
I still have a job, so it's all, everything is okay today for me. So what about you, Josh? Like, what's you mentioned that you're working at the brewery, so you're still working, but like, what kind of stuff do you do besides music? Like, what's your day-to-day fun?
Well, I mean, I was always like, now that I've gotten on this foundation training thing, so I do a lot of FT, trying to find that time to do that with people, just to hone my skills at teaching it.
Right.
But and to that, like, because I want to be very effective at that. Like, my goal is to become like a world-class instructor in foundation training, because it's so beneficial. And so it's like I have like a mission with that. So I'm like, okay, well, what other things are going to teach me more about my body and connection? So I do a lot of yoga, and I was doing Tai Chi and stuff like that. So I'm into that. It's challenging. It's hard, but it's fun, but it's also like a really good, like, clears your mind. So, but because I haven't been able to go to like classes and stuff, like, I've just been like following online the foundation training streaming site. Like, one of the program director is putting out like a daily series of routines. So I do that every day.
Nice.
So that's my kind of like physical activity. But, I've been reading, been hanging out with my wife. We've got a greyhound. Been hanging out with my dog a lot, and
I love dogs.
Taking him for a walk, and just kind of like, I was like, I'm gonna write a bunch of music and stuff like that. And I haven't even really like picked up my guitar that much lately. So I'm just like, oh, man. Yeah. I don't know when I'm going to play with everybody else again. I should be like hacking away at it a little bit more, but it's just like, I don't know. I kind of like go in waves with it. Yeah. Like,
same here. Yeah. So, like, it happens when it happens.
I'll pick it up when I pick it up, and I'll start writing when I get inspired. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just going to work as much as possible and keep keep the company going. Yeah. The brewery. I've worked there for 10 years.
That's awesome.
Which brewery is it?
It's called Old Mecklenburg Brewery. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Old Mecklenburg.
We make German style beer. And and we were the first one in Charlotte. Like we opened in March of 2009, and like of the people from the beginning that are there, when I was hired, I was like maybe like the 9th or 10th employee, but of the people there, I'm the 4th employee.
Wow.
Like and yeah, like so it's like and Dustin works there too.
Okay.
He's a sales rep there as well. I don't know.
Nice.
So I've got that is it's plenty to. I'm working more during this, so that keeps me busy.
Yeah, I have been too. And Tommy, what about you? And Tommy, I want to hear about you and your interests, not just work. You can sprinkle in a little work, but I want to hear about Tommy, the man, as well. And
Me too. Me too. Take it away, Tommy.
So this is such a dad thing. So this is what I've been keeping myself busy with is the girls and I over, I guess, right before Christmas decided like we try to do like one really big Christmas present that everybody can use together or everybody can kind of share. And the girls decided on, we have a really old play set that was out back that was like cedar. It was kind of falling apart in some places. And they were definitely outgrowing it. So what we did was we spent a good chunk of time on the computers and the iPad sitting around looking up different types of playgrounds. And we actually all decided on one together. And then I took the old one down. And as I took the old one down, I was like, oh, this was really easy to take apart. You know, I can't wait to put the other one together. This is going to be really nice. And then I saw the delivery part of it. And as I'm like looking at it, I'm going like, oh, man, this is going to be like, it says it's going to take anywhere between 40 and 60 hours to build it. And my wife is pretty small. And then I have 2 6-year-olds with me. And I'm like, oh, this is probably not a great idea. Like, I don't know if I want to build this by myself. And my wife had the really good idea of, let's just put it out on Facebook. I have a ton of friends that are in the Carpenters Union or like are contractors and stuff like that. And they're out of work now. So I was like, look, instead of actually just, you know, hiring a company to come out and do this, when I put it out on Facebook and see if someone will come here and build it. So that's been another kind of undertaking, is finding someone to build it. And actually I found, I grew up skateboarding for a long time. And one of the kids I grew up skateboarding with was in a contractor or was in the Carpenters Union and hasn't been in work for like 3.5 weeks. And he was like, dude, I'm kind of hard up. I would love to do it for you. And I was like, dude, here's the thing. Do you know anybody else that, because both my wife and I are collecting paychecks. We're both working because we're teachers. So, I mean, but our teaching is minimal. I mean, I teach an hour and a half, maybe every day. I have all this extra time. And I was like, look, if someone else is out there not working, the least we could do is, you know, have, you know, kind of kill 2 birds with one stone, help out a friend and relieve myself of the headache of having to try to build this thing by myself. So that's what I've been doing.
No, that's awesome.
And actually, I played bass in bands growing up, but I've always played guitar on my own. So like whenever I play music by myself, I either play guitar or piano. So I've actually been working with both my daughters. One daughter is really interested in piano and the other one's really interested in guitar. So I bought my one daughter like a 3/4 size acoustic for like $100 off Amazon. It sounds great. And so we've been coming down like every other night for about half hour or 45 minutes and learning notes and learning chords. And she's just super into it. So it's really been kind of fun to kind of like rediscover like parts of like, I'm like, oh, I forget how to do this. Hold on a second. Like she'll say things like, she watches stuff on YouTube by herself now about guitar. And then she came into me the one day and she was like, Daddy, what's diminished fifth? And I was like, I don't know. I don't remember. Like whenever I played guitar, I always like looked at someone and said, okay, so what fret is that on? Okay. What string is that? Okay, cool.
That's the extent of my
precise.
No, yeah.
So
what number are we playing?
Exactly.
Like, we're on fret 9. Play the 9.
Yeah, play the 9. Yeah, I never like when somebody's like, I thought it was funny was I remember God, who was like the first time? So we were friends with a bunch of kids in A Life Once Lost, and I remember Doug from A Life Once Lost was kind of like, especially back then when he was like 18, 19, was of the same mindset of like, what number are we on? Whereas the new guitar player they hired was this kid named Bob Carpenter, and he like really, really knew music theory. And I remember him saying to me like, oh, actually, no, that's like more like legato, and started to like throwing out all these terms. And I'm like, I remember looking him right in the face and being like, "Are you making shit up right now? Are you just like, like when you talk to a car guy and they're like, they start making things up and you're like, no, dude, like a legato, diminished fifth, like what are you talking about?" And he's like, "Do you know anything about music theory?" And I'm like, "No,
not a thing."
I know enough to stay away from it.
I was going to say, have you been to the shows? It's us hitting people with the guitars. Like we're not.
There was something, so cathartic about the menacing nature of those shows. Like it was like, dude, people might get hit.
Yeah.
Like, but they know what the risks they're taking. Like this is gonna get wild.
Yeah, you came to see bands that had like 10% of them have the word blood in their name. The other 10% have like something like throwdown, and it's like, what the hell did you expect was gonna happen? Like, I remember Anthony and I played a show when we were younger, and it was with a band that was really kind of huge up here, which was Bad Luck 13 and the Riot Extravaganza. And
wait, you played with them?
So we played
in audience of one?
At that point, we weren't even called Audience of One. Remember, we were just like a grindcore, like noise band, and I don't even remember. We were called, I think at that point, we were called the Bill Bixby Experience, which was Bill Bixby was the guy that actually was. He was the guy who played Bruce Banner on fucking The Incredible Hulk. So I don't know.
Wow.
Keep in mind, this is from the mind of like 15-year-old idiots. Like this is where we came up with this shit. So we played a show, and I remember being like, I've never heard of this band before, and it was at a skate park, and they played on top of a half pipe or at the bottom of the half pipe, and I remember the first 10 or 15 seconds. These guys came out with masks on, and they had huge lengths of chain, like real, like, 3/4-inch chain. I was like, holy shit, what the hell is going to happen? And they walked over to all the fire exits and fucking locked them. And I was like, oh no, what is happening? And then proceeded to set a fire. I was like, oh, okay, so this is how I die. This seems
wow.
Pretty much, this seems par for the course. You would see pictures of Bad Luck shows, and I remember being like, how is there that much blood? Like, are they really hitting people? Like, you would see like things like they would have like those the most ridiculous things you could think of. Literally, like do you guys have that ECW when you guys were growing up? The wrestling show.
Yeah.
That's so like.
Yeah,
it was
literally like that. Barbed wire baseball bats. Like people would bring shit, like plate glass windows and stuff like that. Like people would bring stuff to their shows and be like, "Hit people with this," and they would literally do it. Like they would, hit each other and then run out into the crowd. And like there was always somebody brought fireworks to shit and throw them out in the middle of the crowd. It was ridiculous.
Well, Josh, we thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you're ever up here, if you're ever up this way, hit us up.
Yeah, I'll have to connect
either with you or with the band, or we'll.
I'm sure. Well, I'm hoping at some point that like we'll get up the Northeast and have a show. We had something lined up, but it's all everything's falling apart.
Yeah, of course
on that front. So I don't know when we'll be up that way, but like I hope that we are. So,
yeah. I think that'll be one of the shows that Tommy and I will get
attend
together
to attend. It'll be like,
yeah. It'll be a big event.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be fun.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Josh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here, guys. Happy to be here. So that was fun. So glad to talk to you guys too.
All right.
Good times.
There you have it, folks. The Josh Brigham interview. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Just as a reminder, check us out on Instagram at @TheNEScene. Also on Twitter at the same handle. Email us at northeastscene@gmail.com. Share with us your ticket stubs and flyers and show videos and stories. Get in touch. We want to hear from you. Thanks. Check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our YouTube page. And give us high ratings on your podcast medium of choice. It helps us out a lot. Every little bit goes a long way. Thank you, and see you next time on The Northeast Scene.